Welcome to Stories of Brisco and Bradshaw. I will be Bradshaw, joined as always by my Chickasaw native, my Chickasaw Hall of Fame partner, Oklahoma's favorite son, Mr. Gerald Brisco, and we've got the founder of the company Scientific Wrestling, and he has also got a terrific book out about the shooter. Some people say the greatest shooter of all time. That's obviously subjective and argumentative. We're going to talk all about that, but his training techniques. We've also got a title for the book. Get ready, because it's the longest title I've ever heard in my life. No Gas, No Run, The Guide to Catch Wrestling, Conditioning, Combat Science, and Building the Engine by Mr. Jake Shannon. Jake, welcome back to the show.
Hey guys, I am so honored to be back here. I'm glad that we got rid of Jody though. Don't invite him to the party
Yes.
next
Oh
time.
man, yeah,
Yes.
me too. I got to ask you about the title? What was you on one of those word count books or something like that where you got charged by?
What's
You
up
got
with the
money?
title?
Yeah, so I think Jerry, you knew Karl pretty good, right?
Yeah, I knew him. I wouldn't say pretty good, but I was an acquaintance. I don't think anybody except the real insiders like Jody knew Karl real good. So
Yeah, but you knew him because you were a neighbor, so you
we were neighbors, yeah, and we talked a lot, yeah.
yeah. So most people, Karl's real famous for that phrase, conditioning is your greatest hold. Right? That if you don't got gas in the tank, it doesn't matter if you know everything or not. And so that was something that he just really drove home. And he never asked a dollar for all of his expert training. Man, the guy, he was like the founder of MMA, but pretty much because he was doing MMA in Japan well before the UFC. And he would ask for payment in squats and Hindu push-ups.
I'd rather
Well,
pay him with a Venmo.
I would too. But he'd say, he was just so funny. And but that's really how it was the foundation of everything he taught. And he was just such a physical guy. And so he would always use this analogy of a Rolls Royce. And he's like, you could have the greatest Rolls Royce in the world, but if you got no gas, it's not going to run. And that's really where no gas, no run came from.
yeah, yeah,
And
and
so
I really agree with him on that too.
yeah, and there's different philosophies on the gas, right? So like you look at somebody like Dan Gable. Dan Gable embodied that perfectly. Wasn't the most technical wrestler, but he
Yeah.
could drag people out to deep water. And when they gassed, he just have a highlight reel the whole time because they were tired and he could do whatever he wanted because he still had gas
He,
in the tank.
Exactly. I just took part with an interview with Dan Gable, and he said conditioning's your enemy. I mean, if you got no conditioning, you could be the greatest technician in the world, but come that third period and you got nothing in the gas tank, you got nothing in your toolbox either. In other words,
Yeah, and Kurt Angle had very, very similar philosophy. Just a freak for being in the best shape so he could outlast the other guy. But this was all really what Karl was all about, fundamentally, foundationally. That's all he cared about. And if you couldn't do the 500 squats, 250 Hindu push-ups, and do a 3-minute bridge, that was it. See ya. He didn't want to talk. He didn't want to deal with you. That's the payment that he demanded.
well, you're right on that. I saw Karl walking his dogs one time. He had pit bulls, and I'm a pit bull lover too. So I stopped and we started talking and everything. And I was volunteer coach of Sickles High School here in Citrus Park, Florida. I said, Karl, would you come down and work with my kid for a day and just kind of show him a little bit of routine? I'd be glad to. I said, wait, when I saw that gleam in his eye, I said, wait a minute, Karl. I said, I got 40 guys out, and we've had to beat the hallways to get 40 kids out to wrestle. We can't afford to be running them off. So would you give me? He said, I only know one speed. And I said, yeah, but please don't have them until beginning of practice through 80 squats because I won't have anybody left over for the work out there. He came and he did a great job. He kind of divided things up with different skill sets of different guys. He said, over here, give me the guys that really want to train today, and the rest of you go over in a corner and watch, or just tag along and drop out when you have to. But I want the guys over here that can do what I want. And I was proud of my team. 3/4 of them went over to the God side of it, and he worked their asses off, and they were sore the next day. But you know what? I had parents come up to me because Karl not only did he work their asses off, but he took time to go talk to each and every one of them. and give them a little bit of knowledge on why you're doing that and what's the benefit of doing that. And my guys, they asked about it for the rest of the season. When we're going to have Mr. Gotch back? When we're going to have Mr. Gotch? I was thrilled to death with Karl coming in and helping.
Well, and that what you just mentioned is such a great story, because it emphasizes exactly everything that I cover in the book. And it's one, all of his ideas about conditioning, but he goes in depth about wrestling philosophy. But he does mention this about coaching philosophy. And it's exactly what he said. He said, dude, you cannot have some cookie cutter thing. That's why he was down on people that would try to learn from books or DVDs or tapes or whatever. Because he's like,
him and Farmer Burns wouldn't have got along very well.
Well, he didn't like that idea, because he's like, coaching is an individual thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I have to. There's different body types, different personality types. I got to know the person individually. So for me to invest all that time and to give a squirt, you got to be doing 500. Because if you don't make it through the 500 squats and all the rest, you don't want it bad enough for me to invest the way I'm going to invest in you.
Right.
What was it that was Karl's biggest conditioning thing? And I say that because people always talk about the squats done at the first, the Hindu push-ups, the different things that you did as far as starting the session. But was that Karl's biggest thing that he hung his hat on as far as conditioning? Or was there something else that he did? Or was it the training itself, or a combination of all of it?
Well, so if he was training wrestlers, it was squats and Hindu push-ups. So in India, they call them Bethaks, Bethaks. I mean, no, that's English. I don't know. That's how they pronounce it.
That's good enough for us.
and then Dans, D-A-N-D, which is the kind of the dive bomber, upward dog kind of looking push-up that the Hindu push-up is, right? And then he would also focus on bridging gymnastics. That was kind of the foundation, very bare bones. So he had this other gimmick that I'm sure Jerry knows about, and that was what he called the Gotch Bible. And it was basically a deck of cards.
Deck of cards, yeah.
And every, blacks would be legs, reds would be arms. If I pulled a red 7, whatever, I would do Hindu push-ups, and he had all these variations. He had like half moon push-ups and all these other different kind of push-ups. So if I got a diamond, I would do Hindus. If I got a heart, I would do the half moon push-up. If I got a black card, I would do like normal Hindu squats, but it would be double the face value, because he always believed that the legs could do twice what the arms could do. So if I got a black 7, I'd do 14 squats. If I got a black, let's say, club, that would be normal Hindu squats, but a black spade would be 7 or 14 jumper squats, where you actually would kind of jump and skip in place in a way. But there's all kinds of variations that he had for the Gotch Bible. But that was the rough foundation. Now, that was for wrestlers. There's some great footage that I found of him in Inoki training.
Hey, before you go, I want to talk about the Inoki, because that's a really cool spot, but I want to clarify on that a little bit, because I've seen so many guys do the deck of cards and let people out there know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You shuffle the cards. There's just a deck of cards, and the randomness also adds to the fact that Karl believed that this helps your conditioning, because you had no idea what's coming next. You might be doing jump squats, you might be doing Hindu squats, you might be doing Hindu push-ups, you don't know, but you pull out the card and you go through the 52 cards.
Did you read the book already?
Yeah, but I read the title, which took me a week.
Okay, so it's actually covered in the book, and that's exactly right. Exactly right, because he's like, wrestling is random. And so is a random shuffle of the deck. Like, you need to just be able to go and do whatever based on the demand of the moment. And you've got to go. You got to have that gas in the tank. So 1000% right. Yeah, exactly.
Just to clarify, and then I was going to bring up anyway, the Inoki and the Gotch video, which I've watched a million times, and I tried to copy, and I realized I couldn't copy anything in it.
So yeah, we didn't even talk about the bridging gymnastics, or he would do pull-ups. He had a whole panoply, man. He had an armory of different exercises to get the person ready. Now, this is interesting, right? Because so you have Karl, who's an Olympian, 12 years at Wigan, then came over, worked for Al Haff, trained in shooting, and he actually, this is controversial, but it's a fact. I have him on tape. So everything that's in the book, I have on tape. That's the only reason I wrote this. Yeah, because I don't need somebody being like, oh, bullshit. I'm like, go play the tape, dude. I don't care. Right? Because I don't, it's just, I like the shoot. I don't like the work. So I'm just going to go right to the shoot on that and be like, listen to Karl's voice, man. It is what it is. I got it recorded. And that's available, by the way. It's just very long and tedious because it's probably 7 or 8 hours of stuff I was able to record with his permission. He was my mentor. Billy Robinson was my coach. Billy actually trained me, but Karl was in Florida and I was in LA at the time. So it was like remote coaching. Now there's a thing. It didn't exist back then, but that's what it was, is I would pick his brain. I was developing scientific wrestling. He helped me develop the rule set that we have today, which has inspired all the new tournaments. Nobody had done any competitions in catch wrestling that were shoots since the 1909 Alhambra tournament in England. So Karl and I were able to get this out and actually start a tournament system that was pins and submissions, the basic rules of pro wrestling, but as a competition. The entirety of that book is culled from that. And honestly, that's how I also, because I have Billy's book that I co-wrote with him called Physical Chess, which we talked about on another podcast with you guys. I did the same method. I would have conversations with Billy and I would record it. And then I would go back and I'd pull out my part of the conversation and then figure out a way to match the paragraphs together, smooth it over, make it smooth. And then it's in Billy's voice. And that's basically what I did with this book. So it's the distillation of all his different ideas and philosophies. Now, back to your question, for wrestlers, that was the workout. But now Karl's was an animal. Like, he was an animal. And he has a famous story where he had to get his teeth pulled in Japan. So he said, oh, just pull them all. So he had all his teeth pulled and he was back at the gym the next day coaching.
Wow.
He had bad hip surgery and he had it done in, like, I can't remember the exact year, but he had already had it when I first met him. I think it was 2004 or something. He was doing squats that day. He's like, I held onto the counter, the kitchen counter, and I tried to do my squats. As the hip was a problem for him, and he was pretty beat up by the end, movement-wise, he didn't care. And I talk about this in the book. He moved. There's a famous strongman that did basically a really rigorous isometric program, and his name was Maxick, Maxick. You can look him up. And Karl was like fanatical about that. He was doing all these different muscle flexing things to stay in great shape, even when his hips couldn't let him do the other exercises.
Yeah. And one thing you mentioned, Jake, is about Karl being an animal. Ken Shamrock, who could also be accused of being an animal in a very 100%. Great way, which I have a lot of admiration for Ken and a lot of love for Ken. But he tells a story about being in Japan with Karl. You know, Karl was an older man at the time. He had a lot of wine or something to drink, beer, wine, or whatever else. And he decided to train with the guys because they're making whatever it was. He went out there and trained pretty much in the bag, drunk, and he was the last one standing with all these young guys who were in great shape. You know, so when you talk about Karl being an animal, I mean, Karl was a bad dude.
Yeah, 1,000%. Before Wigan, he was the Belgian freestyle and Greco-Roman champion.
And Greco, yes.
I think his squat was like 10 kilos under the world record.
Wow.
And that was before he went to Wigan. Then he spent 12 years at Riley's gym. Then he came to America where he was working for Al Haft, young Gotch, hence where he got the name Karl Gotch from Karl Krauser, from Al Haft. Yeah. And then he went, because he was in the Ohio territory. I don't know if you know Frankie Kane. He was a friend of mine before his passing recently.
Mephisto to other people.
He started a club called the Toehold Club, Frankie Kane. And Frank Wolf was a feared shooter, the policeman for Al Haft. And Karl went over to America, and just the way he got his ass handed to him when he went to Wigan, because he didn't know hooks. And then, you know, all the middleweights are toying with him because he just didn't know submissions. He went from Wigan over to Ohio with Frank Wolf, and he said, dude, I consider myself an American catch wrestler. That it's just the better. That's This is the challenge that I have with Karl. He was very opinionated, and I'm not here to fight his battles, but he had some very strong opinions about things. And I got a lot of friends in Wigan, and I don't want to, and he had some strong opinions about Lou Thez, and I have a lot of friends that were friends with Lou. And I really, actually, I joined the Cauliflower Alley to meet him, and then he passed away that year. So, 2000.
So you killed Lou Thez. You
fault.
killed Lou Thez.
You killed Lou Thez. Oh my God! Of all, way to go, Jake!
Right hero swords with Brisco and Bradshaw. We saw that. You killed.
That is so sad. We are folks. We were so sorry. I guess this show is over, and we'll never.
Carl would have liked that though.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk.
Wait, Jerry. Before you remember that thought with Wolf, who won?
Yeah.
Did Karl get on the mat with him and roll with him?
I have a feeling that Frank showed him a thing or two, and that's why, Karl, as opinionated and tough as he was, if he had something to learn from me, he would learn from anybody, man. So he's picking up from Iranians, Hindu people.
But you mentioned that Frank was the big policeman for Haft, and Karl comes in. Was there ever any conflict between the two?
Not that I know of. I think there was a lot of respect, and I think Karl took on Frank Wolf as a mentor. I don't think there was much conflict or heat.
Okay,
but he had a lot of respect for him.
And he learned from him rather than it was a competition.
Yeah, there was no contention. No, he learned from Frank Wolf.
And this was before you killed Thez. Okay.
Okay. We talked a lot about Gotch's Bible and everything. Where did he get the? Who was his mentors besides Riley over in Wigan that Karl really looked up to and kind of adapted his mentality from?
Well, it's kind of funny because I knew Billy so well. I knew Billy way better than I even knew Karl, and I knew Karl pretty well. But and again, we mentioned Jody, who is a protege, Jody Simon, Joe Malenko. He's going to be coming. He came to our event last year, coached. People loved him. He's coming out to Vegas again next year, May 1st through 3rd to coach CatchCon. If I could do a plug, catchcon.us. He's going to be there coaching. Everybody loved him.
Hey, and real quick, Jody and I'm going with Jody. I'm tagging along to Wigan here at the end of June.
Yeah, fantastic.
They're going to do some great stuff with Jody. He's going to give out some awards and stuff. Obviously, he's a big legend. I'm just lucky. I've always wanted to see Wigan. And I've always wanted to go there. And I'm tagging along with Jody so that, just so I can see it.
So it's interesting, too, because it was Karl, as far as my research shows, the first mention of Riley's gym being called the Snake Pit was Karl in a press junket calling Wigan a snake pit.
Now, was that the name at the time, or did he call it that? And that
he called it that, and then it kind of stuck. It was actually known as Riley's Gym. It wasn't. They weren't branding. They didn't give a shit. It was a shack. It was a shack. In fact, it no longer exists. It collapsed under snow in the late 70s.
As there is a lot of those things over in the UK was like his gym was very competitive with another style, or was it just unique in itself?
Well, and to your question, so as I understand and pieced it together from original sources, both Karl and Billy Robinson, Karl was at the 1948 Olympics. He placed 10th. He was already the freestyle and Greco champ for Belgium. He had already been in the concentration camp, nearly died during World War II. This is what an animal is. He nearly dies of starvation in a concentration camp, and then in 1948 is already an Olympian. Wow. It's like, what the hell, dude? So Billy's uncle, Alf Robinson, lived in Manchester, which is, you'll fly into Manchester to go up to Wigan.
Right.
They're close. And so Alf Robinson, who was a wrestler and a boxer. He had boxed Max Baer. He won the Lonsdale Trophy in boxing. He was also a scout, and he went down to the Olympics, obviously, because he's a wrestler. So he goes to the Olympics. He sees Karl, and he's like, Karl, you need to come up to Wigan. I think you'd really like it. Okay? So Karl comes up to Wigan, gets his ass handed to him because, again, he doesn't know submissions. And this is something that any amateur wrestler faces when they face a jiu-jitsu guy until they figure out the submissions, and then the jiu-jitsu guy's dead because the wrestling is superior. But if you don't know the hooks, it's dangerous. So Karl loves it, stays up there, but it was very contentious, to be honest. And this I actually learned from a combination of stories I heard from both Karl and Billy. So Billy, now remember, Karl's 12 years older than Billy, so he was almost like an uncle. And they wrestled a little bit, but it was like quite a disparate age difference. And so Karl goes to Wigan, and Billy was like, they didn't like him. They called him Chesty because he was very proud and he'd walk around like that. And he called it how he saw it. If he didn't like you, he'd just fucking tell you, right? Like he was like straight shooter. And so he didn't get along. Nobody really liked him. And Billy Riley didn't teach him. This is straight from Karl's mouth. Billy Riley didn't teach him. But there's a guy named Billy Joyce. And actually, that was his ring name. His real name was Robinson. No relation to Billy Robinson. He had a brother who was also a member of the gym, and his name was Joe Robinson. Now, Joe Robinson had, I think, his leg crushed in a mining accident up in Wigan. And it was actually Joe Robinson, or what Karl would call him, Joe Robbie. And Joe Robbie was the one who took him under his wing and showed him all the Wigan stuff. Fast forward, Karl leaves, so he learns really a lot of the hooks. So he learned wrestling, Greco-Roman. His coach was a guy named Gusto Kaiser, and had all these other Greco-Roman coaches coming up and freestyle. Then he goes to Wigan. They kind of don't show him anything. You know how the old timers were. They're like, yeah, I ain't showing you nothing. Joe Robbie takes him under his wing, teaches him a lot of stuff. He's like, okay, I'm out of here. And he goes to America. In America, he hooks up with Haft. Haft hooks him up with Frank Wolf, and Frank Wolf puts some polish on him. From there, he gets in trouble by getting in trouble with Gorgeous George. And
tell us that story.
Hey, before you do, I want to go back just to hair. Do you know what concentration camp he was in?
Off the top of my head, I can't.
Or what country he was in?
I want to say it was Poland. I want to say, but I'm not 100% sure. I know that.
Curious.
Well, what's interesting is so the Nazis weren't just rounding up Jews; they were also rounding up gay people. But what they were also rounding up all of the secret society people, like Freemasons and whatnot. His father. Now, Karl really loved his mother, but I don't know that he had a great relationship with his father, as far as I could tell from the conversations. His father was a part of a group called the Order of the Buffaloes, I think is the name of it, and they had a
That's
tattoo.
What Fred Flintstone was a part of.
That's what I was going to say. Fred Flintstone.
I don't know if they had that Grand Poobah hat.
That's right, him and Barney both.
But they had these tattoos. I think it was like 3 dots or something, and that was how, if you were in the Order of the got rounded up, thrown in concentration camp, and they also grabbed Karl and threw him in, and he nearly died.
How long was he in there?
A couple years.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, a couple. Wow. Like he's like, dude,
Wow.
In fact, when he saw me, because I have a carotid dissection from getting choked so much, so I have really bad atrophy in my neck. And he's like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? You look like one of those guys that was at the concentration camp with me. I mean, he did not give a shit, but he was funnier than hell, and he was a good dude. He was a really good dude, but his relationship with Wigan was a little contentious, and it was really Joe Robinson, who took him under the wing and showed him stuff.
Yeah.
So that was his main mentor and learning it.
At Wigan, yeah. So I don't know that he got along that well actually with Riley, and so the snake pit that you're going to go see is actually part of the is really the guru there is Roy Wood, and then his daughter Andrea is really orchestrating. Brilliant woman. She's like a barrister or a lawyer over there, and Roy's been quite successful, I think, in real estate, and so they've picked up the mantle. He kind of was running it for a while, but then Roy, I don't think, Roy did a lot of it. He had a good regional pro wrestling run. And then I think he fell out of that and just stuck to coaching. But he did a little bit with Japan for a little while, but then he really focused on being a freestyle wrestling coach. And I think he got some sort of appointment with Guam. I mean, I don't know that they ever placed, but England's not a great Olympic wrestling country. But he was coaching for the Olympic team, I think, for Guam. And then Billy and I actually got out there in 2012 and we did this whole European tour and we got invited to go see them and we checked it. And they have a nice, like the actual Riley's gym was this really, it was like a shack. The pictures are, it's like a shack and that's being generous. Mm-hmm. And they would roll out this mat and it was just a disaster. And anyway, they now have this really nice facility, the Aspol Wrestling Club, but because Roy Wood was like pretty much the last group of wrestlers to really get time with Billy Riley, as well as Billy Joyce, Billy Robinson. Remember, Billy Joyce was Joe Robbie's brother.
Right.
And it was Billy Joyce who gave the title, when they had a match, the title was given to Billy Robinson from Billy Joyce. Billy Joyce was like God to Billy Robinson.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot about the name Billy Joyce, but that guy was a different level even among the legends.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I had my first catch wrestling coach was a gentleman out of the Pacific Northwest. His name was Dick Cardinal. And he had wrestled a lot in carnivals and whatnot. And it was interesting because I was actually getting coached by him. And then I was being remotely mentored by Karl. And the one name that kept coming up, and I've had a hell of a time as a researcher finding, somebody who's really interested in this, Benny Sherman. Have you guys heard that name?
No.
I'm pretty sure Karl picked up a lot of the tricks in the conditioning. Now I know he directly learned from an Iranian how to do the squats and the stuff that Iron Sheik does, and the meals, the Indian clubs. He learned that from an Iranian. But Benny Sherman was this Jewish wrestler who was an animal, a total shooter, and again he was in the best shape of anybody, and he had all these crazy exercises. And both Dick knew him from the carnivals, Dick Cardinal, and then Karl really held in high esteem Benny Sherman and Frank Wolf. So if you, in my opinion, he's not here with us, but if you were to ask him, and it's in the books, he really considers Frank Wolf and Benny Sherman and Joe Robbie to be the guys that gave him the knowledge of catch.
Wow. And now to get back to, since I distracted you on a tangent there, I'm sorry, the Gorgeous George thing.
Yeah, and gosh, do I have it right? Who is? I totally, and I apologize. I might not have the right name. Who was it that he cornered in the locker room? I just don't have it on the top of my head, and I apologize. It was
George.
I don't know who's the first Nature Boy. It wasn't Gorgeous George.
Buddy Rogers.
Buddy Rogers.
Okay.
So Karl did not have much respect for workers. He just didn't. If you weren't actually tough, couldn't actually wrestle, he just didn't. He was upset, probably, and he spoke his mind. He would let you know. And Buddy Rogers was huge, biggest draw, and Karl cornered him in a locker room and beat him up and got blacklisted.
And Buddy, to his defense, he was not any way, shape, or form. I don't even think he ever claimed to be any type of tough guy or shooter.
Yeah, this is maybe the part of Karl that I don't want to fight his battles, because.
Well, okay, I was going to ask you a few questions about that, but I respect that, and I won't. But
I mean, I could do my best to tell you his perspective, but I agree with you. I think Karl, he just was a powerful being. Like in Japan, they call him the god of wrestling.
He was absolutely in the wrong business, though, to have that mindset in the beginning.
Well, I think so. What ends up happening is things go bad in the U.S. and he actually gets blacklisted because he fucks up the biggest.
Because of his mindset, yeah.
So tell us what he had against Buddy Rogers.
Yeah, that he was a worker. and he was making more money.
He was a showbiz guy, and he didn't like the showbiz at all.
Carl really could
even the generic worker, John, he did not like it, even the basic workers, unless they were certified tough guys. He had nothing to do with you.
Nope, nothing. I mean, and I think that was a character flaw. I love Karl to death. I'm just in my perspective.
And in your notes, you mentioned about, I had a great friendship with Lou Thesz, but Lou Thesz, in my mind, I never considered Lou Thesz a tough guy, and that's where I'm kind of confused on why Karl always picked on Lou, Lou claiming he was a tough. Now Lou claimed he was a tough guy, but I was telling John before the show, in my era, I mean, guys like Hodge, my brother, Del Lewis,
shooters,
and some of those other guys, shooters, they never considered Lou Thesz a tough guy. They just thought he was a great worker that drew a lot of money, and that's where I'm kind of confused.
But see, this is the same problem Karl had with Buddy Rogers. He just was like, again, I'm just doing my best, Karl. Like, who the fuck are you? Like, what are you doing here? We're doing wrestling, but this isn't wrestling, and I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah.
He did break Lou's ribs, and Lou always held that it was a double cross. It probably was. He probably showed
really.
us.
So Karl broke his ribs.
Yeah.
How'd he break them?
I think it was some sort of fall, and I'm sure he put his hand in the right place.
Yeah. Been a little stiff and probably went a little too far.
Yeah. I'm almost certain it was intentional. So this is the weird thing, right? Because had Karl not been a shooter through and through to the point where he could have made money and he never did.
I know that's disappointing to me. I mean, he could have made big money.
But let's think about this in a weird way, right? So he does this thing, gets blacklisted, like for real, like nobody. He's like shit. He had to get a job as a garbage man.
Really?
Yeah.
So he grabbed you in the dressing room and just beat the shit out of him?
Yeah, this is all over the internet. This is like not even controversial, right? But what happened, he's working as a garbage man. Now, do you guys know the name Big Bill Miller?
Yeah, the Dr. Bill Miller, yeah.
So this was a big guy, ex-football guy. He and Karl were close friends. Yeah, he and Karl were very good friends. And Bill was going over to Japan because they wanted the freak show. They wanted all the big guys.
But Bill was also a Big Ten wrestling champion, too.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so see, this is where the respect was, right? And Bill is making money in Japan, and he's like, Karl, get your ass over here. Karl's like, okay. Well, he goes over there, and he beats everybody up at the Kodokan. He's like, everybody's like, holy shit, who the fuck is this guy? And in Japan, that's respected. Like it's back in the day, like early all Japan, like it's stiff. It's really fucking stiff. But that's because Karl came in right on the heels of Ricky Dozan, comes in, takes Inoki under his wing. So now Inoki under the Gotch style develops strong style, New Japan style, strong style. But then that's not good enough. Karl hooks up with Fujiwara, Yoshiaki Fujiwara, who I've trained with a couple times. Great human, funny guy, interesting guy. My God, wild man. He takes Fujiwara under his wing. In fact, if you watch that Inoki Muhammad Ali match, is fascinating because if you look at it, first of all, who's the ref? Gene LaBelle.
Right.
First guy who ever had a mixed martial arts fight in the United States that was modern in the 60s in Salt Lake City against, what was his name? Milo Savage. Yeah. Gene's the ref. In Inoki's corner is Gotch, Fujiwara, like the guys you really would like to have in your corner, legit, like no metaphor. And so with Fujiwara wants to be even closer to Karl's vision, and they create, so now you get the UWF. And the UWF is like not a strong style, a shoot style. The outcomes are preordained, but you're going in there and beating the living shit out of you. It's not like I'm going to do this spot. And you do, it's like, we'll go fight. And here's the end. Just get to the end and make it look as real as possible. So if you go watch some of those, UWF then spawned UWFI, spawned Pro Wrestling Fujiwara Gumi, which is where we see our first Ken Shamrock. After he left Florida, he went from the Malenko's gym, went over to the Pro Wrestling Fujiwara Gumi. He also trained Tiger Mask. And Tiger Mask's name is Sayama. Now, Sayama, an incredible worker. Oh, my God. You still see people, Chad Gable pulling off his moves and, giving respect to Tiger Mask. But Tiger Mask really became enamored with Karl's vision for shoot. And he actually created Shuto in the mid-'80s. Shuto, which is the way Japanese people say shoot. Shuto. And it was the first purely competitive MMA, at least, let's call it 9 years, but we'll say 10 years before UFC.
And to add a little caveat there, you know who they put on the card to draw the crowd in the United States for that Muhammad Ali versus Inoki, right? The Briscoe brothers.
There we go.
It was Jack. I wasn't on the card.
Were you in his corner?
No.
Okay, Jack Briscoe.
Jack Briscoe.
That's right, Jack Briscoe.
Yeah, but another shooter.
Yeah, exactly.
So really, in my mind, Karl was such a powerful human, beyond being a wrestler. Karl Gotch is the true father of MMA.
What is the difference in training? Because you know both so well, you'd probably be in a better position to answer this question than anybody in the world. What is the difference in training styles or anything else between Billy Robinson and Karl Gotch?
Okay, so...
good question.
Well, it's interesting because I also like Wade Chalice, who's the Guinness record holder for the most wins and pins in all wrestling, distinguished member of the Hall of Fame, just like another superhuman level wrestler.
Right. He's a mental wrestler to me.
Yeah, but see, this is the thing. This is why I brought Wade into my company, Scientific Wrestling, because all of them. I'll tell you the similarity, and then I'll tell you the difference, like a compare and contrast here. Where they were all similar is they all believed that you had to have gas for the machine to run. But once the machine was running and you had gas conditioning, it was all leverage. It was all physics. It was all science. It wasn't about muscle. Muscle's good. Leverage is better. Every single one of those guys, that was the thing. That was the commonality. Now, what's different? Billy came in after Karl. He was a dozen years younger. Billy was more savvy with business. He still had a rough reputation amongst the boys, as I understand it, but he was more savvy and he made more money, and he could get along and he understood the role of the policeman better. Karl had no clue. He just didn't. He was like, I'm not going to bother. And the difference, I actually find that Billy was aware of all these modalities that Karl was doing, Hindu squats and all. He understood that. And if he was on the road, that's what he would do. But Billy was a lot more like Wade, and he felt that the best conditioning for wrestling was wrestling. I don't know that Karl would disagree with that, but the problem with Karl is he was like Kurt Angle. Karl would say, okay, I am going to absolutely destroy you just with exercise. Then we wrestle.
Yeah.
I want you wrestling gas.
Kurt was kind of like a Larry Bird on a mat. I'm going to do this to you. I'm going to do this to you. I'm going to do this to you. And there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. And Kurt would go out and do it. John probably experienced that a few times.
I did. And I did with Shamrock a couple times too. Shamrock once told me, he goes, put any hold you want on me. I go, Ken, I don't know any. That's not fair. I legitimately don't know any, kid.
Yeah, and Ken, so in the Lion's Den, which was Ken's team, I think really, besides the Gracie family, which was a family, That was the real first, the Lions Den was the first team put together for MMA, and their workout all came, it was 500 squats, it was 250 push-ups, it was all that same thing, and then you'd wrestle. And Ken picked that up from his influence from being with Karl Gotch guys, Minoru Suzuki, Masakatsu Funaki, and Fujiwara.
You know, we jump all around in this thing, so I'm going to jump back to Al Half. Did Al bring Karl over? Did Karl come over to join the crew, or how did that transpire? And was Al looking at him as a policeman or as somebody to bring in to help him draw money, or what was the
that's a great question. I wish I had a great answer. I really don't know the dynamics of that. I mean, I could probably look through the archives and see if I could find that answer.
And what was he used at? What was he used at in the beginning? Were they putting him over in a work style, or?
Yeah, I do think that Karl. I think what had happened is that Karl came back, and he had been doing that weird Karl Krauser gimmick, and it just wasn't really working for him. They were trying, I think, to do that because English wasn't his first language, and on top of that, he didn't have a lot of the charisma. He was kind of very robotic.
So,
kind of bland in that regard.
What type of gimmick was he doing?
Karl Kraus,
a Nazi,
German type,
like a Nazi.
One that you got fired over.
That's right. The ones I got fired over. Yes, yes. But also, they're the guys who put him in a concentration.
Ironic. Yeah. Can you imagine, like, how insensitive?
I mean, it's like Hogan's heroes. Colonel Klink and John Banner. Those guys were all Jews. Colonel Burkholder. Those guys were all Jews playing Nazis. You know. And now you've got a guy who was a victim of the Nazis playing a German,
almost dead, and so you could see maybe why he did not like the business.
You think?
As it was.
Well, he didn't like life. I mean, he didn't like people in general. Who would after you've been treated like an animal in those camps? Yeah,
I mean, he really didn't have a lot of patience. He was always so good to me, and that's because he really had a reputation. Like, what was that movie that was done with all the WCW guys, and it had not Walter Matthau, but that one famous actor, and he played Mandini or something, Sal Bandini.
The wrestler?
No.
The original wrestler? Oh,
it was a comedy, and it had the two knuckleheads, and they were trying to learn how to wrestle, and they find this old timer, and it just reminded me of Karl because he was just so curmudgeonly. But he was the funny thing about Karl, if you never bullshitted him, if you didn't come in and grandiose or grandstand or act like you were everything, and you put in the fucking work, like, okay. So I think, John, you were telling the story about how Karl was drinking wine and then gassed everybody at Ken's workout.
Yeah, well, Ken was part of it. He was there with him. He was in Japan in the dojo over there. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so he's probably with either the Pancras guys or with the Fujiwara Gumi back then, right?
I would assume, yes.
And Glenn Jacobs wrestled Fujiwara Gumi, by the way. There's a great match with him, and he's wrestling this little tiny Japanese guy. The first time I met Karl in Tampa, so I flew all the way out. I was super excited. I'm at Bradenton. So I wake up at the crack of dawn, get my cheap rental, and drive over to Tampa. I roll in. I've known Karl for probably about 2 or 3 years at this point. I'm there on Christmas holiday for some relatives in Bradenton. And so I roll up, and I'm so fucking excited. I'm like, my God, I'm actually going to get a workout with Karl. And I was in good shape. So this is 2000, I want to say 2006. This is before my injury, and I was young. And I show up. Oh, Jacob, come on in. He comes in. I'm in that little apartment in Tampa, the one that he was in that the Japanese were paying for. I come in. He's like, come on in. And he's like, he loved plum wine, which is like a Japanese wine. It's so sweet. It's like an after dinner drink. It's so sweet. It's sickening how sweet it is. I don't have the stomach for it. And then he loved a cigar. And he would have a cigar. It would be like his daily vice that he would call it. And he would have a cigar and his glass of plum wine. So he's like, come on out. And I'm on an empty stomach because I woke up at the ass crack of dawn. I'm in my uncle and aunt's house. I don't want to eat all their food. So I just get in the car and head out. I'm starving. It takes me a couple hours to get there. I'm starving. I get there. He's like, here, have some plum wine. I'm like, okay. Then he gives me a cigar. I don't even smoke cigars. I have nothing. So I'm like green. I'm like sick as I fucking can be. And I finished the whole goddamn thing because I'm like, goddamn, what do you do? I'm not going to say no. I'm with Karl. And I drink the wine and I'm trying to be, a good guy about it. And he's like, great. Now we work out. I was like, what? And he gets the deck of cards and we banged it out. And I did everything except I got he was actually quite impressed with my bridging gymnastics, but I just didn't get the last card. The last card, I don't know what my hang up was, but I didn't get that last card. But he saw my effort and he was like, dude, you did really good. I'm very impressed with your bridging gymnastics, all this kind of stuff. He was I'm going to be real. He was hard as nails. He was mean. A lot of people didn't like him. But if you gave effort and you showed you were sincere and not a bullshitter, if you were a shooter with him, a straight shooter, he was the funniest guy. One of the funniest people I ever met. He was funny. He had the funniest fucking phrases. Oh, all that guy's good for is turning a good meal into shit. I mean, that guy's so low he could walk under a snake wearing a top hat. He had all these weird, funny, corny sayings. He was hilarious.
So
he was very generous.
Your meeting with him was for what?
Well, we had known each other, and I had been in LA to kind of piece together what I was trying to do, picking his brain.
So you were there just to talk to him about different things about the business and things like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was just there to learn. I was like,
"What?" I got a reason to ask though, because you were there to talk about stuff, right?
It was also implied that there would be a workout, but I
didn't
really plan for it though.
Karl did that with a few people, that I've heard about, and I just always wondered, is that Karl's way of fucking with people, or it's kind of a rite of, or is it kind of a rite of passage?
I think it's all of the above. I think it's a rib. I think he fucking thinks it's hilarious to get me sick off fucking a cigar and sickening sweet wine, and then make me do Gotch's Bible, which is like challenging. I think he finds that funny personally because he's probably a little sadistic. I also find it's like, is this guy full of shit? I've been talking to him for 2 years. Is he fucking full of shit? Does he really have the heart for this? Is he really going to do whatever fuck it takes? So I think it's kind of I think it's a bunch of birds with one stone.
Right. That's what I was curious about. Because he had a reputation, kind of like Stu Hart for, for a very unique meetings with people.
Yeah, exactly.
Jerry, what was your relationship with Karl Gotch?
I had a friendship with Karl. I can't say I had a strong friendship with him, but I always heard how standoffish Karl was and how selective he was, the guys that he even communicated with. And so Eddie and him got along pretty well. I don't say great. I don't really think Karl got along with a lot of people great. But there were guys like Don Curtis and Coach John Heath, guys that Karl respected. And when I came in, I was a little brother, so you never know how you're going to be respected or anything. But I think he was working. He was still working for Eddie at the time. And matter of fact, he was doing opening match job for Eddie. But Eddie gave him a job, gave him something to do, and gave him a place to make some money. And so I think he saw my work and saw that, in the beginning of my career, I was total wrestler. I didn't do a lot of showbiz stuff. So I think he saw I had the fundamentals, but I still don't think, he put me in the class with a Billy Rob, which he shouldn't, or anything like that. But I had a good, like I said, I lived down the street with him. I'd see my son, one of my son's best friends, lived 2 houses down from me. So I'd drop Wes off down there on Wayne Road, and then pick him up, and I'd usually see Karl walking his dogs, and like I said, I'm a pit bull lover, so I'd stop and talk dog with Karl, and we developed a friendship there. Then I worked up enough nerve to ask him to come down and work out with my team, and that was really a big step for me because I didn't want him going down there killing my high school guys, And you heard that's what he did in a workout room. You're kind of giving the coach, when you hand him a whistle, and hand him the coach's tab to do what you want to do. So I kind of had the preference, Karl. Please don't kill my guys. We only have 40 guys out. We need every one of them for a team. So I think I had a good relationship with him, a good friendship with him, but it wasn't one of those best friends like he's a neighbor. It wasn't one of those guys I went over, smoked a cigar with, and had a glass of wine with every time.
Yeah, and did you, when he first came down to Florida, did you already know his reputation?
Oh yeah, I mean, as a kid, when I was first beginning to break into the business, I rode with Danny Hodge a lot, and I rode with Frankie Kane a lot. Frankie was in Oklahoma, and I'd always heard the story about Gotch and all that stuff. But dumbass me, I'd always thought it was the original Gotch,
Frank,
right?
Until I put two and two together. Then I first met him. Well, he got to be old to be coming to Florida, but it wasn't the original Gotch, of course. I'd like to say I had a good one-on-one friendship with him.
You know what's really interesting that you brought up twice now. That's probably the most relevant thing in my own personal life, and this was Karl. Karl helped me tremendously with my scientific wrestling company. I've got this great book that I'm very, very proud of. It'll be dropping next Thursday. So it'll be 99 cents.
Say the date because we're not sure exactly. This isn't going to drop.
Oh yeah. So that'll be the 26th of March. It's going to drop that one day. It's going to be 99 cents on Kindle.
Wow.
And then it'll go up to 19.95. But that day, I want everybody to buy it on the 26th. Go over there, no gas, no run. And please get a copy because I want to spike that bestseller for that day. But this is, Karl was instrumental in my company in scientific wrestling. He helped me come up with the rule set that we use today. Now I've got my own promotion called Shoot Pro Wrestling, which we book UFC athletes in tag team matches, like the same, the rules of professional wrestling, but it's all shoot, all 100% shoot, no work. Like we're wanting to make a bettable sport out of this. That was Karl helped me with the rule set. Karl, I also invented, but it wasn't really an invention, but I brought it and made a product, the mace, which is the bowling ball on the end of the stick. I was the one who brought that to the United States, called it the mace bell, like a kettlebell. And it's everywhere.
That's the one, excuse me, that's the one that looks like a big, like a sledgehammer, but it's got the ball at the end of the long thing.
Yeah. So Karl let me swing his.
I use that for conditioning at the gym.
Yep, that was me because I met Karl. Karl had one made out of wood. You couldn't buy them anywhere. And I said, this is freaking amazing. And I went to the biggest kettlebell manufacturer and I sold them on it. And they were like, let's go. And we made a steel version of it. Now, different people, Joe Rogan created his own called the steel mace and all that. But all that comes from my design, which was based on Karl's wooden one that he had made. But I had them made out of steel because I'm like, well, modern workout people are going to want steel. But the thing that you brought up, Jerry, twice was pit bulls. And this changed my life because, again, Karl was a real generous guy. And he loved pit bulls. Thor, Odin, he had all these Norse gods that he would name his dogs, right?
Right, yeah.
He never asked a dime for me to train, to all the hours and hours. He was so patient. I asked him every freaking nerd question. And he was so patient and really gave it, put his effort into teaching me. And one day he said, listen, if I'm going to keep teaching you, you have to go adopt a pit bull. I was like, okay, whatever, I'll do it. No problem. That's easy. So at the time, my cousin was living with me and she's an aspiring actress. I had a great job. I was on the beach in Venice Beach in California, had an extra place. She was like my personal assistant. I'm like, you just do whatever I ask and you can have one of the rooms, okay, while you're trying to go to auditions and shit. So I go, you got to find me a dog rescue to get a pit bull. Well, I'm in LA, dude. It's all gangsters and, so there's pit bulls everywhere. She connects me with this rescue. It changed my life. Went to the rescue, saw the pit bull I wanted. She was being fostered. This dog, her name's Lulu. She's passed. I've got her. The only animal I have tattooed on my body is Lulu. And beautiful Staffordshire pit bull. Okay. Gorgeous. And she was being fostered by an even more gorgeous woman.
Wow.
And I leaned over to my cousin, who's a good looking woman. She's like an actress, but she's my cousin. So I'm like, she's going to be mine. And she looks at me, rolls her eyes like, shut up or whatever. So I go and I adopt that dog. And that woman is my wife, 20 years married, 3 children. That would not have happened without Karl Gotch.
Wow.
What did you name either the dog or one of your children, Karl?
No, so Karl's personal emblem was the Flemish lion because he was from Belgium. And do you know what that lion looks like? It's kind of the fancy lion. You see it on medieval shields and stuff. It's all sideways and so no, and this is interesting because there's a pro wrestler named Fujinami who Karl put over, really respected Fujinami. We both named our children the same name. Now in Japan, it's a masculine name, but here it's feminine, Leona. So my first child was named Leona.
Awesome. Awesome.
And my youngest is named Billy after Billy Robinson.
Oh, cool.
So,
well, I have not outdone you, but I got something that almost matches you. I have a rescue animal that I have named after my dear friend, Mr. Brisco. And
he's a gorgeous man too.
Yeah, that's right. He's a gorgeous man. He's absolutely wonderful cat. And he's normally right here. I normally grab him, but he's gone somewhere upstairs probably. But I do have baby Brisco in the house, who is named after his namesake, Mr. Gerald Brisco. There, so we both
he got him off the streets at 2 pounds. Now baby Brisco weighs about 8 pounds.
Jerry, he just crossed 10 pounds. He weighed 10.1.
Awesome.
10.1 pounds was his last. The vets come here and they weigh him and make sure he's okay. And they just weighed him at 10.1 pounds. So he was 2 pounds when I got him. He was skinny. They didn't know if they'd live or not. I named him Brisco, and the damn thing, just like Mr. Brisco.
Well, I'm not going to marry you though, John. So
I hope not. And he just tough as he can be, just like Brisco.
And a heavyweight now.
The cat's his skin is 10 pounds. Yeah. I wish I could show him to you. He's got a tail that's about that long. It's funny because he's got this beautiful cat. He got this really long tail. I have no idea how big he's going to be. He may be part lion.
Karl was huge for that whole rescuing thing. It was important. Yeah. Like he didn't want money. He was like, "You need to rescue a pit bull." We're crazy. That's wow, right. Changed my life. Rescues are the best.
Yeah, rescues are the best. I'm so far people picking up animals that need rescue and not going and buying animals. That's a separate issue because then you can name them after legends like Mr. Brisco.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, what kind of relationship did Billy Robinson and Karl have?
Not much.
Not much.
Not much.
Was it a jealousy type thing, or was it
no? They were. It was like an uncle. Billy really considered Karl like an uncle. So interesting story, and Billy talks about this in Physical Chess, which is the book I wrote. Ghost wrote with Billy Robinson. So Karl's already in Japan because of Big Bill Miller. He's big. He's blown up. Like he's changing the whole scene in Japan. Well, the rival promotion, I think it was like IWJ, or I can't remember all these acronyms anymore, but like whoever Karl wasn't working for was like, who is this guy? We need our own version of this. So they called up Wigan and they sent over Billy, and the 2 rival promotions didn't know they were like uncle and nephew. So just like the old days, they couldn't ride together. They couldn't be seen together. So they'd have to like secretly meet in these random spots, but they're in Japan and they're these giant gaijin. They just stick out like a sore thumb, they're outsiders or whatever. So it's funny, like, but as they got older, I'm going to be honest, like Billy went through a real rough patch in the 80s, and he had a real battle with alcohol, and he went through a really nasty divorce and pretty much lost everything. So we talk about Karl had a rough patch and worked as a garbage man. Well, Billy did all these great things. He was making so much money in the 70s with AWA and Vern and all that. Dude, just huge. Was in The Wrestler with Ed Asner, like big things happening for Billy. And he and his wife got a divorce, and it was nasty. And she took him for everything. And he started drinking, and he just crashed. And he put on all this weight, and then he's all injured. And I just think a lot of his relationships suffered. And I think Karl was probably one of those relationships. And they never really repaired it.
Well,
yeah, that's the thing, because they both were such legends of the business. And I always wondered, like Mr. Brisco did, was it just kind of 2 alpha males kind of in the same spot? Was that it, or was there something else? Or that kind of caused them not to be as close as you would think two guys that were so similar would be.
And similar backgrounds, knew all the same people, but I really think they were very close until all the awful things happened in Billy's life in the 80s. It just was like everything happened at once. His body started breaking. He was getting older. He wasn't getting booked. And then on top of that, he had this awful divorce. He ended up being a security guard at, what was it, Suncoast or one of those casinos. He got fired because he was beating everybody up. Couldn't even, he was at a gas station. He was a gas station attendant. That's how bad it got. And then Yukio Miyato, who knew Billy from the UWFI, which Dan Severn was a part of. It was this Japanese promotion. There was a shoot style promotion. Found him and said, hey, why don't you come back to Japan? We'll get you a little apartment and come coach at my gym. And that was kind of the road.
Is that how you ended up in Little Rock?
Well, so that was, if we had a three-act play of life, Billy's life would be Wigan, and then all the superstar, crazy, wild stuff, and then the last chapter. And I would start the last chapter with Yukio Miyato, because the second act, he loses everything. He's working as a gas station attendant, okay? The beginning of the first act, he goes back to Japan. He slowly rehabilitates himself. He gets off the booze. He's still heavy. He's still really busted up. Like, Billy, he could hardly move at the end.
Yeah.
But again, the Japanese, like they took Karl, they took care of Billy. So you could say there's maybe negative things to be said about Japanese culture, but this was one. They really did take care of them when things like Social Security and whatnot. We lost Jerry.
Mr. Brisco.
Back.
But he'll be back in.
But, I really think that him coming back from Japan was great. But the thing is he was in Japan. It was probably 5, maybe 10 years. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but he was there for a substantial time. And he was just getting older and it was time for him to leave. So his son was in Little Rock, right. Spencer. And I think he always regretted being on the road so much and didn't really have a relationship with Spencer. And he was like, I need to get back to Little Rock. He was still in Japan when I was connected to him by a friend of mine named Josh Barnett, who's a big UFC guy, has his own blood sport pro wrestling promotion. Great guy. Well. Yeah, Josh is a great guy. I actually connected Josh to Karl for a magazine interview. And as a result, Josh knew I wanted to meet Billy. And he was like, well, I know Billy, I'll connect you now. It was like kind of quid pro quo. Well, Billy and I hit it off because I was already down with Fujiwara and Karl and all that. And Billy really liked what I was doing. So I started bringing Billy from Japan to the United States to do seminars. And then he was like, dude, I need to move to Little Rock. I said, let me help you out. And we built a whole business plan and a whole way of getting him out to the world. And he was a huge part of what I was able to do with scientific wrestling and where we are today.
Yeah. And Harry Smith ended up also, that's where he hooked up with him as well. It was in Little Rock, right?
Well, so Harry actually came to the very first couple camps and training camps that I ran with Billy. And then, he would fly out to Little Rock.
Who hooked Harry up? Was it his dad? Was Davey still alive then?
No.
Okay.
No. So Harry came, that first camp that we ran, Josh was there. Another guy who's more of an MMA guy named Eric Paulson was there. He was actually a part of Tiger Mask's Shuto organization. So he's one of the first mixed martial arts guy, and he's got a catch background. Catch wrestling. And then Harry Smith knew Josh because Josh was interested in catch as well. And so Harry came to that first camp and then got introduced and networked. And then Harry's quite good. Harry works for my company. I send him out on shoot seminars every once in a while.
Harry's a very talented guy.
He's a stud.
Yeah,
he's a stud. He enters grappling tournaments.
Terrific athlete, just like his dad, incredibly strong, just good genetics.
Good genetics, but also a lot of will, a lot of like, I'm going to do this. And he enters shoot contests and wins. Like, he's tough.
Yeah, he's legit.
Legit. Yeah. He's a guy I'm like, damn, man, he looks good. He's big. He can do it all. I really wish that the American scene would pick up on that, man.
I do too. And I've always thought they would. Somebody asked me just the other day, well, why is Harry not a bigger star in America? And I've always thought he should be. Because there's everything about him says star. Everything.
I think, some of it maybe because of, he's second generation. I think maybe sometimes people get a first impression when somebody's green.
Yeah, that is a problem. And I don't know if that's the case or not, but I've always said, I was fortunate that I got to work and learn off of television, off of mainstream television. People that don't, that memory remains. And I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not, but that is an issue.
If you've seen his most recent work, dude, he's the total It just
He
baffles
is
me, but I
100%.
don't understand the
And
business
I
well
thought he
enough.
always was. I remember when he had his match that people talk about, when they were 16 years old doing the superplexes up in Calgary. I remember watching, I was there when they had the damn thing. I thought it was awesome. A lot of guys were mad about it. I thought it was freaking fantastic.
Hey guys, I'm back. Sorry, somebody must have had a power pole out in front of my house there. My power went off, and so I came. My computer is not working now, so I'm on the phone there. So
No problem, Mr. Brisco. Hey, John, I had a question for you about training. Okay. And I've never gotten a good answer from one of these shooter boys. How often, like say today now, because things have changed significantly. Look at the days when Arnold Schwarzenegger trained, and he would train for hours at a time. Then you had Dorian Yates come along. I'm talking about, now this is strength resistance training, which is different. I understand that. Then they train 45 minutes to an hour, the Mike Mincer method. Then they have hybrids all over since. Where would you sit on training now, Karl Gotch? If you got somebody doing squats, the Hindu push-ups, and all this stuff, do people do this? Like if they're doing hundreds of them, which is quite a lot, with a ton actually. Do people do this every day? Do they do it 3 times a week? I mean, people are out there saying, "I'd love to train like these guys, but how often do I do this?" What is your recommendation?
Well, okay, so I think that's a great point. That the evolution and kind of, we get data and science and things like that, and things change. So the early days when I came in '94, I went to the second UFC. It was actually 32 years ago, like a week ago, March 11th, '94 was this one I attended in Denver. Changed my life. And I, as I mentioned earlier, I've got a carotid dissection, stroked out. I had all kinds of problems because, and you see a lot of the guys from that early era, in particular guys like, Frank Shamrock. Now, Frank, those guys are okay, but there's a lot of those guys that have the CTE problem, the concussions, because training, you would go full bore. Well, now they are smarter. And like I was dumb in those days and I tried to fight out of chokes. Well, that collapsed one of my carotid arteries and had me stroking out. So you learn these things as time goes on. And so now I think the training is so much smarter. And I also think both Billy and Karl had massive hip replacements. I think Billy had both. I think they might have both had both of them, if I remember correctly. And I think that might have been from the high frequency squats.
Well, I
So
wondered that because a lot of the old amateur guys, they did so much bridging. And Tyson has had that problem too from bridging. But they did it every day, and you didn't know any better. But a lot of times people realize you need a couple days between. It's why you don't train arms every single day. It's why you train arms maybe once a week. Some guys do. Some guys' bodies allow them to train it twice a week or even 3 times a week, but you don't train every day. And I wondered if that was something that have changed if Karl and Billy were around today to put a new training system in place.
So this is the interesting thing, right? Because there's two different kinds of training. There's training for health and longevity, and then there's training to win. And training to win is not healthy for your longevity.
Sure.
Look at all the bodybuilders. They're jacked. They're all wheelchair bound and stuff. You know what I mean? Same thing with the guys that are hardcore athletes. I mean, you're really working at a level that you sacrifice your body later on in life to be the best. So it's different.
well, throw in Kurt Angle right there too. Kurt's a beat up young man.
Yeah,
right. So like how I'm having atrophy, his arms have atrophied because of the radiation from the spine, right? The neck injury. So the challenge is what can we take from these studs and apply it to us now in our normal everyday life and not destroy ourselves, but use it for strength. So I do think there's now what I've found myself personally, I work. I'm actually a business coach by day. Like I help people turn around their businesses, make more money. I'm pretty good at that. But I wake up because a lot of my clients are either East Coast, which is 2 hours ahead for me, or maybe they're in England or they're in the Netherlands, and it's like 7 hours difference. So I'm up at 5 a.m. every day. Every day. I'm like used to it now. But what I do, and this I took from Karl, I don't do 500 a day, but I do this every day. And I've done this for years. I do 200 sit-ups. I do 100 squats. I do 50 push-ups, and I do 25 assisted pull-ups. Like I have a bar and I can put one leg on it, and I'll do those with one leg on, and I'll do all 25. I do that every day. I have no problem. To me,
7 days a week.
Yeah, 7 days a week, even when I'm sick, every day.
Wow.
Every day.
And how do you feel?
I feel fantastic. I'm 52. I'm ready to fuck shit
Your
up.
body, your body.
Okay.
I mean, mentally and body wise, physical wise, you feel great.
Yeah, because it's kind of an interesting feedback loop, right? Because the first thing I do is not get on my phone and scroll. So the community, right? We have to deal with the man in the mirror. Like, I don't know if God's watching everything. I don't know if Santa's making a list, right? But, do you respect somebody who says they're going to do something and then never does it? No. Well, that's the same for us. Problem is somebody can lie. I can't lie to myself. I'm witness to my own experience. So instead of being the first thing I do is be a spectator and scroll on other people's shit, I'm a doer. I get up and I bang that shit out. I'm done by 5:10. By 5:10, I wake up at 5, take a piss, bang out my 200 squats, my 200 sit-ups, 100 squats, 50 push-ups, and 25 assisted pull-ups, and it's not even 10 minutes. And I've been awake 10 minutes, and I've done more than 90% of the planet. I feel good about myself.
The telltale thing. Obviously, at times you've missed some, either early flight or whatever reason. You had a reason that you've missed a few days in a row. How do you feel when you miss a few days?
Well, I don't get too much on myself.
I mean, does your body not feel as good? The reason I ask is, does your body not feel as good?
2 days, no, it doesn't notice. 2 days doesn't matter. If I took a month off, yeah, but it would affect me more mentally because I'd be like, I'm not showing up for myself.
Right.
The
catch wrestling, like now, is like I'm in the DC area. There's MMA, gyms all over the world, all over the country now.
Yeah.
Is there much catch wrestling that is going on in America?
Catch is hard. Catch is hard. What the Brazilians did was genius marketing. So the first UFC that was held in the first few UFCs were put on by the Gracie family. So they booked it to make themselves look good. They didn't book Wade Chalice. They didn't book Dan Severn early. They made their guy. It was the first to market, right? Like, you're a really good business guy. Like, they were first to market, and everybody was like, "Oh, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu." They had 10 years of people thinking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was unbeatable. Well, dude, the second the wrestlers sniffed out money, and I'm talking folk style wrestlers, freestyle wrestlers, and catch wrestlers, the Gracies were done. They have not been ranked in ages. Now it's all Randy Couture's, you know what I mean? Like, it's all guys with strong wrestling backgrounds. Folk style is amateur catch can, by the way. Right? Like the stuff we see in the NCAAs and we see in the high schools. That's amateur catch can. That was the first name. You want to talk about a long title? That's why they changed it to collegiate or scholastic wrestling. But it's different. So jiu-jitsu, you want to talk about opinionated. Karl hated jiu-jitsu. And I have a lot of friends that do jiu-jitsu, so I always catch flack for it. I'm like, dude, I don't kill the messenger. But they have this strategy called the guard. And that's where you lay down on your back and you wrap your legs like a body scissor around them. And Karl, you can read in the book, he calls it the whore hold or the whorehouse.
I tell you why Karl hated it right now. He hated people getting on their back.
100%. But what he would say is he'd also say he hated that. You're right, because he's a wrestler. But then he thought it was lazy. But he also was like, if somebody lays down like that and gives you their fucking legs and you don't break their legs, you should quit wrestling. Yeah. That was a direct quote. So the difference is, how much easier it is to find jiu-jitsu than it is to find MMA training? Not a lot of people do MMA, but a lot of people do jiu-jitsu. And that's because it's like yoga and chess and a video game. It's like you can do it and be leisurely. It's good for retail martial arts. Catch wrestling is harder to find because it's like boxing. It's like Muay Thai. It's like it's a prize fighting sport. It's like MMA. It's not a martial art thing. You don't get colored belts. It's like you either get in there and you win or you don't, and you're either a pro or you're not. And so it's always going to be more rare, and because it's harder, and it's harder on your body. It's not for hobbyists.
Right. And the book is coming out. Tell us again, the book with the longest name in the history of the world.
No Gas, No Run is the name of it. That's the short title, but it does have the lengthier title, The Guide to Catch Wrestling, Conditioning, Combat Science, and Building the Engine. No gas, no run. That's going to be out on March 26th. So
tell us what you can get as a deal.
Yeah, 99 cents. You get it on Kindle. You're the first to get it that day.
First day only, though, right? First day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get that #1 badge. I mean, it's just kind of a gimmick that you do to get everybody to buy it. We price it cheap. Get it this day. It's like a drop. Get it that day. Get the deal. Get the book. It's a great book. I'm really, really proud of it.
And this book is what we went over earlier, is basically in Karl Gotch's own words of recordings that you have done over the years. It's not you putting what you thought was Karl Gotch's thoughts in there or what you thought was Karl Gotch's mindset. This is Karl Gotch's own words from hours and hours of interviews that you had done with him about training, right?
Yeah, and all these conversations are available. It depends on my mood, but sometimes I put it behind the pay gate and sometimes I do it for free. But if you go to karlgotch.com, you can go and listen to him. They're just me and him talking for hours. So the book is a condensed version. I edited it. I brought it together, brought out the things that I thought were the best. But everything in there, you can be like, I mean, I dare you to call me full of shit because I'm going to go show you where he said it. And that's what I did with Billy, right? Like Billy was the same thing. But fortunately, Billy was alive. This is an interesting posthumous memoir.
Right.
But I'm excited about it.
One last question. Do you think Karl would be happy with his legacy now? Do you think he'd be thrilled at his legacy, or would you think he'd rather been, a money maker?
No, he really didn't give a shit about that kind of thing. And he was very blue collar of the people. He just didn't like any of that stuff.
He would love his legacy then.
I think so. I think the legacy in Japan and the legacy of MMA, I think the challenges is people think it was the Gracie family, but anybody who's done any research knows Karl Gotch was the father of MMA. No question.
Yeah, and I'll tell you a funny little anecdote. I was doing commentary one time at WWE, and I said something about Gotch's, Frank Gotch and Karl Gotch or something like that. And Vince fed me a little line about something about the Gotches. And then at the very end, and Vince said, and the greatest shooter was, of course, Karl Gotch, which he wanted me to repeat, but I always thought that was pretty cool that Vince.
Karl did hold the tag teams titles for his dad, for senior.
Yeah.
And he held him with, was it Sarge? Not Sarge. I'm sorry. Who did he hold him with?
It's the French name.
The Frenchman. Someone went to what Sarge Slaughter.
Rene Goulet.
Rene Goulet.
Yes. Goulet. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's all, man. For some reason, thought he had.
I'm the oldest guy here, and I'm the only one that remembers that.
Yeah, you're running circles around us, dude.
Rene was a good guy.
Yeah, Rene's a great guy.
Yeah, Rene was there when I was there. He was a nice guy.
Yeah, so when you think about Karl, it's so funny. Here he is, an Olympian, a WWE title holder, and the father of MMA, and like nobody knows about him. That's what I feel like my mission is, that he was so big and so powerful. I think he might be happy with his legacy, but I'm trying to make him happier about it because I think he deserves wider recognition.
I do too. I mean, he's such a legendary figure in our business.
Yeah, and I was honored too to have Jody write the forward. He wrote a nice little forward for it, and Jody spent tons of time. So like what Billy was to me, Karl was for Jody. So that meant a lot for me to have him write the forward.
Yeah, Jody has really said some great things about Karl and some really cool stuff. Man, what a great legacy Jody Malenko has as Karl Gotch's main student.
Yeah, Jody's great. There's a whole legacy of Jewish wrestlers that I don't think are like Benny Sherman. Like it's a whole thing that just, again, this is such a rich field and there's so much interesting stories that aren't told still.
Yeah. Well, Jake, thank you very much for joining us, and good luck on the book, and good luck on No Gas.
99 cents on one. 99 cents on what?
March 26th.
March 26th. Look up No Gas, No Run. You can
buy the damn book.
You could pre-order it. It's up on Amazon now. I think you could pre-order. Type in No Gas, No Run, and maybe Jake Shannon, and it'll pop up.
Well, Jake, you got to do a lot more stuff so we can have you back on because you're such a great guest there, and we learned so much from you, and we appreciate you. We appreciate you so much.
I love you guys, man. I mean, the number of people I can have this kind of conversation with, I can't even count on one hand. It's like a couple fingers, maybe.
Well, thank you.
Do it as well. Thank you, Jake.
Appreciate you guys.